Hello, good evening, and welcome to Byju's Exam Prep. Welcome to weekly webinars. Those who are joining us for the first time, and information for you, the weekly webinars on Tuesdays shall be focused on the prelims examination, and the weekly webinars on Thursdays shall be focusing on the mains examination. But before we start, an important announcement. We are launching the prelims test series beginning this Sunday, 6th of November. And this time it is going to be bigger, and better. More than 50,000 aspirants are attempting the prelims test series. And the best part about this massive number of students attempting a test series, the best part is you get a fair idea, a good, solid idea as to where you stand in this competition. So I would urge you, please appear in the test series. You have 48 hours to appear in this test series. If you attempt this test within 48 hours, we will give you an all India ranking. If you attempt this test after 48 hours, you're free to do that, but it won't be possible for us to give you the all India ranking. So we will wait for 48 hours for you to finish this test. Ideally, do it at the same time when we launch it, which is 9:30 in the morning on Sunday, which is the same time as the real UPSC examination. And if you are in Delhi, please attempt this test offline in Delhi, and immediately after the test, we will conduct a live discussion, in-person, offline discussion. I will be there, so will be my colleagues, where we will discuss all these important questions live, and we will take the students' doubt as well. But those who are attempting this test online, we will conduct a thorough discussion of all these questions live on Tuesday, 5 p.m. onwards. So please attempt this test. I urge you, I request you with folded hands, please do that. Please appear in the test. Will you? Yes, very good. Of course. Offline tests will be conducted at all the 8 centers that we have, be it in Bengaluru, Hyderabad, Chennai, in Jaipur, in Delhi, in Kolkata, in Pune. Wherever we have the offline presence, where we conduct the offline classes, you can attempt the test series there as well. But specifically, if you're in Delhi, we will conduct the discussion in person, offline discussion in Delhi immediately after the test. So 9:30 to 11:30 will be the mega mock, a half an hour break for 30 minutes, and 12 p.m. onwards, we will conduct the discussion. Whether you have completed the syllabus or not, doesn't matter. Align your preparation along with the schedule of the prelims test series. So those topics, those subjects which we are covering in the test series, you can prepare those topics and subjects so that on one hand, you're appearing in the test series, and on the other hand, you're also revising your subjects. Let's get started and look at topic number 1. We will be discussing close to 9 topics today. The first one, Kerala governor's tussle with his government. The governor of Kerala, Mr. Khan, is in tussle with his own government. And there are multiple reasons for that. The appointment of the vice chancellors, which the governor says is illegal, or something related to doctrine of pleasure, wherein the governor says that I can also revoke my pleasure, which basically means I can dismiss a minister even without the advice of the chief minister. Whether that is possible or not, let's look at all these issues one by one, where first we will look at the role of the governor, the UGC rules on the appointment of a vice chancellor, the doctrine of pleasure, and something related to the M.M. Punchi Commission. Why we will be discussing M.M. Punchi Commission, I'll tell you slightly later. Every state shall have a governor. That's what the constitutional mandate is. There were lots of debates in the Constituent Assembly as to whether we should have the office of governor or not. In fact, if you look at the provisions related to the office of governor in our constitution, it appears as if these are blind imitations, the replica of the Government of India Act 1935. So the provisions related to the governor in the Government of India Act 1935, as if the blind replica of these provisions is mentioned in our constitution vis-a-vis the governor of a state. There were heated debates inside the Constituent Assembly as to whether the office of governor should continue or not. And ultimately, it was settled that yes, we should continue with the office of governor, but for two reasons. And these two reasons can be important for your prelims examination. Why did the Constituent Assembly settle for the post, the continuation of the post of a governor? Reason number one given was the dearth or the lack of talented legislators. And reason number two, some amount of centralization of powers is necessary. We have just come out of colonialism. Now we are experimenting with democracy. In democracy, people will come out in large numbers and elect their representatives. These may not be talented, so they may not be in a position to pass a good law, or they may not be in a position to pass a foolproof law. That is why we need a governor, so that governor can keep a check on the bills, on the purported laws passed by the legislature if they are not good laws. That's why we need a governor, so that governor can stop the passage of that law. Second, some amount of centralization is necessary because we have come out of colonialism, and unfortunately the country is also partitioned on the grounds of religion. Pakistan was created as an independent country, and now whatever is left, we have to keep this country united. So one state should not try to come out of the Union of India. That is why we need some amount of centralization, and this governor which will be the nominee of the central government, will keep a check on the secessionist tendencies that will be there in the states. For these two reasons, the Constituent Assembly settled for the continuance of the post of a governor. And you would see that the provisions related to the office of governor are like a blind replica of the Government of India Act 1935. Constitution says under Article 163 that there shall be Council of Ministers with Chief Minister at its head to aid and advise the governor, who shall act on that advice, which means whatever advice is given by the Chief Minister and his Council of Ministers will be binding on the governor. So if the government says that you have to promulgate an ordinance, the governor is bound to promulgate an ordinance. If the government says you have to appoint Miss X as the Advocate General of a state, the governor is constitutionally bound to accept this advice and appoint Miss X as the Advocate General of a state. But the Constitution further says, except when the governor has to act in his discretion. And what is a discretion? Where governor does something without the aid and advice of the Chief Minister and his Council of Ministers. And the Constitution further says, if there is a doubt as to what constitutes the discretionary power of a governor, the word of the governor shall be final. Long story short, there can be or there is a Council of Ministers headed by the Chief Minister to aid and advise the governor, and the governor is bound to act on that advice, except when the governor has to act in his discretion. And when governor acts in his discretion, he can do anything without the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. And these discretionary powers, they are not defined in the Constitution. But the Constitution further says, if there is a dispute as to what constitutes the discretionary power of the governor, the word of the governor shall be final, which means the governor gets to decide what are my discretionary powers. And it is this non-codification of discretionary powers that has led to a lot of tussle between the elected Chief Minister and the appointed governor. This discretionary power has been misused by the governor to recommend Article 356, which is the president's rule. This discretionary power of the governor has been misused in numerous instances, and we have discussed that in the live class. We have discussed that in the tab lectures as well. But something has happened in Kerala. What has happened in Kerala? The governor of the state is in conflict with the elected chief minister. And the challenge here is the interpretation of the UGC guidelines. There are state universities in the sense the government universities in a state, and there is law passed by almost all the state legislatures that the governor of a state is also the chancellor of the state universities. The governor of a state is the chancellor of the state universities. And this chancellor is appointing the vice chancellors. In 2013, UGC, the University Grants Commission, which is the body which regulates the conduct of universities in India, it came up with a detailed guideline as to how the vice chancellors can be appointed. For example, this vice chancellor should have the highest level of competence, should be the person of morality, should be the person of integrity, should be well versed in administration or research. For example, he should have minimum 10 years of experience as a professor in a university, or he should have a 10 years experience in a reputed university in terms of research or academics. And at the same time, if, for example, in a state university X, we have to appoint a vice chancellor, for that, what we have to first do, we have to set up a search committee. This search committee will invite applications, and this search committee will select possibly 3 to 5 candidates. And then the vice chancellor will be appointed from one amongst these 3 to 5 candidates selected by the search committee, and this vice chancellor will be appointed by the chancellor, who is the governor of that state. Something happened in Kerala. The vice chancellor of APJ Abdul Kalam Technical University, he was appointed as the vice chancellor, but he was appointed not from a list of 3 to 5 candidates. Only his name was proposed. That means out of instead 3 to 5 candidates selected by the search committee, only his name was given by the search committee, and only this person was appointed as the vice chancellor. Matter went to the court. The Supreme Court said, no, this appointment is illegal because it violates the UGC guidelines. Because UGC guideline says a search committee should be set up which should discuss anywhere between 3 to 5 candidates, and then one person from this list shall be appointed as the vice chancellor. Since the search committee only discussed one name, that means it is violation of the UGC rules. This vice chancellor of APJ Abdul Kalam Technical University was removed. But using this Supreme Court verdict, the governor of Kerala asked the vice chancellors of 9 other universities also to resign. The government is saying, how can you ask the vice chancellors of 9 other state universities to resign while the Supreme Court ruling was specific to only one university? In fact, the law minister of Kerala state also challenged this, also criticized the governor's actions, and then the governor said, I may revoke my pleasure. Because what is Constitution saying? Chief minister shall be appointed by the governor, and on the advice of the chief minister, other ministers shall be appointed by the governor, and these ministers and the chief minister shall hold office during the pleasure of the governor. This is a settled constitutional position. What is a settled constitutional position? That chief minister shall be appointed by the governor, and only on the advice of the chief minister, other ministers can be appointed. Only on the advice of the chief minister, ministers can be removed by the governor. So this is not the personal pleasure of the governor. This is the pleasure of the chief minister, which can be exercised by the governor. But the governor is saying, no, if you are criticizing me in public, If you're leveling allegations against me in public, I will withdraw my pledger, which basically means I have the power to sack a minister without the advice of the chief minister. This was controversy number 2. But when we look at the role of the governor, there have been multiple instances where chief ministers are saying that office of governor shall be abolished or should be abolished, because the governor is there to destabilize an elected state government. The governor is acting as the stooge of the central government, because the governor is appointed by the center, the governor can be removed by the center, and if the governor is appointed by a center is ruled by a different political party, and this governor is appointed to a state which is ruled by the opposition political party, then this center will use, misuse, abuse, overuse the office of governor to create instability in a state. That is why the office of governor should be abolished. But let's look at the question. Which of the following committee recommended deletion of the doctrine of pledger from the constitution with regards to the governor of a state? You have 30 seconds. Write an answer. Tell me the answer to this question. Nishant, the controversy number 1 is applying the Supreme Court ruling with regards to one university, applying the same verdict to 9 other universities. The Supreme Court said appointment of the Vice Chancellor of APJ Abdul Kalam Technical University is invalid because you have flouted the rules of UGC. But how can that verdict be applicable to 9 other universities? Because there, the Vice Chancellor was appointed from the list of 3 to 5 names suggested by the search committee. And close to 57% students are right. It was the Madan Mohan Punchi Commission of 2005 which recommended that this phrase, doctrine of pledger, should be removed from the constitution. And at the same time, it was this Madan Mohan Punchi Commission which recommended that this convention, where the governor is acting as the chancellor of state universities, this convention should also be removed. Not only did MM Punchi Commission recommended the deletion of doctrine of pledger from the constitution with respect to the office of the governor, but it also recommended that this convention where the chancellor of state universities is the governor should be rid of this responsibility. So if the controversy is vis-a-vis governor and the chief minister with respect to the appointment of the vice chancellors, for your prelims examination, you need to know what are these UGC guidelines which purportedly have been flouted by the Kerala state or the Kerala government. Then what are these MM Punchi Commission recommendations? Let's have a look at few of these recommendations. Punchi Commission said that this governor, if you're appointing somebody as the governor of a state, this person shouldn't stay away from active politics at least 2 years before his appointment. So if I am to be appointed as the governor of Karnataka, before my appointment for at least 2 years, I should have stayed away from politics, even at the local level, even at the panchayat level or the municipality level. This is to ensure that this governor is a detached political figure. He will not get involved in the local politics of that state. Punchi Commission also recommended that there should be a say of the chief minister in the appointment of the governor. Consult the chief minister when you're appointing the governor of a state. A committee should be formed that is entrusted with the task of appointment of governors. Right now, what happens? The president appoints a governor on the advice of the prime minister and his council of ministers, which basically means that the central government gets to decide on its own who should be the constitutional head of a state. And if the central government is headed by a different party, the governor is appointed to an opposition political party. ultimately it will lead to tussle, it will lead to friction, it will lead to conflict. Punchi Commission said that this committee, which should be entrusted with selecting a name or recommending a name as the governor of a state, should consist of the Prime Minister, the Home Minister, the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, and the Chief Minister of that concerned state. Let them sit together, discuss possible names, and then recommend the name to the governor. Just like you set up a search committee of 3 to 5 members, of 3 to 5 names, so that out of these 3 to 5 names, one person will be appointed as the vice chancellor of a university. In a similar fashion, you can have a select committee, a committee of 3 to 4 members, which should discuss various names and then recommend one name to the president for appointment as the governor. Deletion of doctrine of pleasure from the constitution, the question that we discussed. The term of appointment of a governor should be 5 years. 5 years in the sense, even here, there is doctrine of pleasure. Constitution says the governor shall be appointed for a period of 5 years, but the governor of a state holds office during the pleasure of the president, which basically means during the pleasure of the prime minister. So this doctrine of pleasure for the governor should also be removed. And it was also recommended by the commission that this convention of appointing governors as chancellors of universities, this convention must come to an end. This is what you need to know from this topic, the tussle of the governor of Kerala with his government. If you have any question, please let me know. Swagat is asking, sir, is the doctrine of pleasure of governor a discretionary power? Is it applicable in case of President of India? See, what are the two things here? One is doctrine of pleasure, as in the ministers hold office during the pleasure of the governor, which should be clear-cut interpreted or clarified in such a manner that it is not the personal pleasure of the governor, it is the pleasure of the chief minister, not the governor. Then there is another doctrine of pleasure with respect to the appointment of a governor. The governor is appointed by the president for a period of 5 years, but the governor shall hold office during the pleasure of the president. During the pleasure of the president. That means this lack of security of tenure. If I am appointed as the governor of a state, normally my term is 5 years. But this doctrine of pleasure is like the Damocles sword on top of my head. At any point in time, the president may say, I revoke my pleasure, you are removed as the governor. Which basically means if I do not do the bidding of the central government, if I do not toe the line of the ruling party at the center, I will be removed as the governor of a state. So today I am doing whatever is told to me by the central government because I don't have security of tenure. If I am removed tomorrow, I have no job. That is why whatever central government is doing, I'm doing that. Whatever central government is saying, I'm doing that. That doctrine of pleasure, M.M. Punchi Commission said, should be deleted from the constitution. In a sense, the governor should have a fixed term of 5 years. Whose discretionary powers are more, president or governor? Governor. Appointment of governor as chancellor, is it just a convention or constitutional? It is not mentioned in the constitution. It is a legal principle. Legal principle in the sense that various state governments have passed laws. And through these laws, they say the chancellor of a state university will be the governor. In fact, Kerala last year passed a bill, even this year as well, passed a bill which said that governor will not be the chancellor of the state universities. Can a non-politician become a governor? Why not? Okay. Now let's look at another topic, National Investigation Agency. What is the context? A bomb blast rocked Coimbatore. Now it is argued that this bomb blast was basically an act of terror. It was basically a jihadist crime. And now this act of terror will be investigated by National Investigation Agency. This National Investigation Agency was set up through an act of the parliament which was enacted in the year 2009. An NIA was created, enacted, established in the aftermath of 26/11 attacks. Terrorists from Pakistan, including Ajmal Kasab, came through the sea route and wreaked havoc in Mumbai, targeting luxurious hotels and restaurants in Mumbai and killed more than 300 innocent Indians. And it was felt that at that time, we should have a central agency which should be tasked with the responsibility of investigating all the terrorist crimes in this country. So prior to that, terrorist crimes were also investigated by the local police. But now it was felt in the aftermath of 26/11 attacks that we need a central agency which should be responsible for conducting the investigation into all acts of terror. And that is how NIA, National Investigation Agency, was born. And this NIA Act was amended in the year 2019. So if NIA is conducting investigation into this Coimbatore blast, from the prelims examination point of view, you need to know everything related to the NIA. What is this body? When was it created? What is its mandate? What is its link with UAPA? What are the challenges involved? All this we have to discuss now. So this NIA is a basically statutory body created by the law of the Parliament. National Investigation Agency Act of 2009 established, created National Investigation Agency. And it is a premier central agency which is responsible for conducting investigation into all acts of terror. But then we have a schedule. Which are these crimes? Which are these acts of crimes which will be investigated by the NIA? For that, there is a schedule which is attached to NIA Act. Previously, according to this schedule, acts of terror will be investigated by NIA. Offenses under Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, UAPA, will be investigated by the NIA. Now, in 2019, more offenses were added. Which are these offenses which were added? Cyber terrorism, counterfeit currency, human trafficking, listen to me carefully. Which are the offenses, which are the acts of crimes that can be investigated by the NIA? There is a schedule to NIA Act. This schedule mentions the list of offenses, if committed, will be investigated by the NIA. Prior to 2019, it had offenses such as terrorism, anti-hijacking, UAPA, offenses under Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. These will be investigated by the NIA. In the year 2019, the act was amended. More offenses were added, more crimes were added to the schedule. So if these crimes are committed, then NIA will conduct the investigation. You may be asked in your prelims examination, which of the following acts or crimes were added to the schedule of NIA Act after the amendment in 2019? Three significant crimes were added. One, cyber terrorism, the sale, supply, distribution of counterfeit currency, illegal currency, and human trafficking. Now, this is where it becomes even more interesting. For example, we have a state government. Let's say the state government is West Bengal, or the state government is Bihar, Uttarakhand, Jharkhand, so on and so forth. Let's say in this state, there is a crime committed. Some people are involved in the sale, distribution, or printing of counterfeit currency, illegal currency. Then what the state government has to do, it has to inform the center. In West Bengal, this crime was committed. The police will report to the state government that Home Minister, this offense has been committed in our state, but this offense is mentioned in the schedule of NIA Act, which means ideally this should be investigated by the NIA. Now, what the state government will do, state government will inform the center that such an offense, which is a scheduled offense mentioned under the schedule of the NIA Act, has been committed in our state. And the center will have 15 days. Within 15 days, the center will decide whether this crime, which is committed in West Bengal, will be investigated by the NIA. That's another important point, which is important, relevant for your prelims examination. But something else. This is where Chhattisgarh comes into picture. Chhattisgarh has challenged the constitutional validity of NIA Act. And remember, Chhattisgarh government is not challenging the 2019 amendments to NIA. No, Chhattisgarh government is challenging the original NIA Act of 2009, saying it violates the principles of federalism. In a sense, the argument of the Chhattisgarh state is, then what is the role of the state police? Law and order is a state subject. Police is a state subject. So if there is an act of crime in our state, constitutionally, it should be the state police which should be responsible for conducting the investigation. Now, with the creation of NIA as a central agency, you are violating the principles of federalism. That is why Chhattisgarh is challenging the constitutional validity of the NIA Act of 2009. But not just this. NIA Act says whenever NIA is conducting an investigation in the state, the officers of the NIA will have the same status as the state police. What does that mean? In my state, for example, an offense has been committed. Now, the local police will conduct the investigation into this offense, into this case. Now, all the departments of the state government will extend cooperation to the police, will give all possible help to the police, will give all possible information to the police, so that we reach to the logical conclusion and we will complete the investigation in this case. The same cooperation, the same support that you're giving to the state police, you have to give the officers of the NIA. And in 2019, two more major amendments were made to the NIA Act. And this can be very, very important for your prelims examination. Amendment number 1 was NIA will now have the power to investigate extraterritorial crimes. NIA in 2019 was given the power that from now onwards, you are no longer the premier agency which is responsible for conducting the investigation into the crimes which were committed within India. You are also empowered to conduct investigation into the crimes committed outside the territory of India. That's number 1. And number 2, NIA can transfer a case to the state government, and the central government can ask NIA to suo motu conduct an investigation. Suo motu means on its own. If there is a crime committed in any state, which may be related to cyber terrorism, UAPA, or any other scheduled offenses, on its own, the central government can ask the NIA, you conduct an investigation into this case. That means suo motu, on its own, the central government can ask NIA to conduct an investigation without even waiting for the report of the state, without even waiting for the state government to report to the center that such an offense has been committed in our state. These two were the major amendments made in the year 2019 to NIA Act. Now let's look at the questions. Which of the following statements regarding NIA is or are correct? Let's take a poll. 30 seconds. Tell me the answer. Vinutha, what if state denies NIA for investigation? Is there power given to center to take action because it's the matter of national security? For that, look at center-state relations. The state government will have the power to do anything, but it cannot impede the jurisdiction of the center. It has to comply with the laws passed by the parliament. And if the state government is interfering or non-implementing the laws passed by the central government or the parliament, it can be assumed that there is a breakdown of constitutional machinery. Then a notification or a guideline or a directive can be issued by the center to the state under Article 365. Why don't you comply with NIA? Why are you restricting NIA? Why are you not cooperating with NIA in this investigation? We direct you under Article 365 of the Constitution that you shall have to cooperate with NIA in conducting investigation to these offenses. Even then, if the state government does not abide by this directive, then under Article 356, President's rule can be imposed and the government can be dismissed. Which of the following statements regarding NIA are correct? Number one, NIA cannot transfer any case to the state government for investigation. NIA can transfer any case to the state government for investigation. So this statement is incorrect. Central government can issue directions to the NIA to suo motu, on its own, take over the investigation of a case. It's correct. So which of the following statements are correct? B, only two is the right answer. This is where some students make the mistake as well in these questions where there are multiple statements, where some statements are correct, some statements are incorrect. Next to the statement, just mention the first letter, whether it is incorrect I, whether it is correct, which means C. And then see what the question is asking. Which of the following statements are correct? So you just have to see where C is mentioned, which is only two. So B is the right answer. Done? Now let's look at Saurabh. Sir, like CBI, NIA also need general consent from the state. Now, if you want CBI to conduct an investigation, CBI is the central agency, a premier central agency, investigation agency, primarily looking into corruption. And the original mandate of CBI was to look into central government departments, was to look into railways. Can CBI conduct investigation by the state officers in states? For that, the state government has to give general consent that yes, CBI can conduct an investigation in these cases. If the state withdraws this general consent, then in a particular state, the CBI cannot conduct an investigation. And this is where various state governments ruled by the opposition, for example, Chhattisgarh, Telangana, Rajasthan, they have revoked this general consent. They have not given consent to CBI to conduct investigation against state government officers. CBI can still conduct investigation in a state against the central government officers, against railway officers, but not against the state government officers. For that, general consent should be given to CBI. But NIA does not need this general consent. Whenever there is a scheduled offense, which means an offense has been committed, which is mentioned under the schedule of the NIA will conduct that investigation. The NIA will have the power to conduct that investigation. It does not need the consent of a state. Please explain the meaning of a statutory body. A body which is created by the law of the legislature. It's a statutory body. But a body which is created by the constitution is a constitutional body. Is NIA more powerful or the CBI? Depends on who is the accused. But if you look at the mandate, NIA is more powerful than the CBI. Okay. Now let's look at the third topic, Guantanamo Bay. The last prisoner who belonged to Pakistan in Guantanamo Bay was released recently. That's why Guantanamo Bay is in the news. But what is Guantanamo Bay? Can be potential question for your prelims exam. If not prelims, then at least for your interview as well. Guantanamo Bay is in Cuba. But it is under the control of the United States of America. How? Cuba is a communist state. United States is a capitalist state. In a sense that Cuba and United States, they shared acrimonious relationship for decades together. So how is it that Guantanamo Bay, which is there in Cuba, is controlled by United States of America? What is the history behind this? That we need to understand today. Cuba was basically under the control of Spain till about 1898. You can say Cuba was the colony of Spain till about 1898. But the impact of Spain or the position of the Spain dwindled one by one. And when the position of Spain dwindled, Cubans basically demanded independence. And this is where Cuba demanded independence. But where is Cuba in the world map? The neighbor of Cuba is United States of America. And United States of America decided to help Cuba. And this is what led to the Spanish-American War. Guantanamo Bay is in Cuba, but it is controlled by United States of America. How is that possible? These two are enemies of each other. For that, there is a history. Cuba had become the colony of Spain till about 1898. This is where Cubans demanded independence. Cuba as a neighbor, United States of America, it decided to help Cuba. And this is what led to the Spanish-American War. But initially, incidentally, America was not so concerned about the Cubans. America was concerned about the Spanish presence in Philippines. But America decided to help Cuba as well. And then there was an agreement. Spain withdrew. But Spain handed over Cuba to the United States of America. So it's like colony was swapped. First, I am the colony of the Spain. Now there is Spanish-American War. Now I become the colony of the United States of America. But then after 3 years, 3 to 4 years, Cuba decided to fight for its independence, complete independence. And United States also decided to give independence to Cuba, but with a catch. And that catch is Platt Amendment. What is this Platt Amendment? It is this amendment, it is this document which governs the independence of Cuba? According to this document, which was signed in the year 1903, this treaty was signed in the year 1903, United States accepts the complete sovereignty of Cuba over the entire Cuba. But on the other hand, Cuba will have to give up sovereignty of some areas. And one such area is Guantanamo Bay. Plot Agreement. It is this document which governs the independence of Cuba. This treaty was signed in 1903. According to this document, United States accepts the complete sovereignty of Cuba. But then there is a catch. According to this document, some of the territories will have to be given, will have to be sold or given out on lease to United States of America. And one such territory is the Guantanamo Bay, Guantanamo Naval Area. And this treaty was reaffirmed in 1934 again. But then the Cuba got under communist revolution. So Cuba is not only known for the Cuban cigars, it is also known for Fidel Castro, or later on his brother, Raul Castro. When Fidel Castro became the head of the communist government in Cuba, in 1950s, he threatened that he will kick out the United States. In 1964, Fidel Castro, what he did, he stopped the water supply to this Guantanamo Bay area. And then how United States responded? United States responded by setting up its own water plant and the electricity plant. But long story short, despite the tussle between Fidel Castro and the Americans and the United States of America, this Guantanamo Bay continues to be under the control of United States. Why? Because under this plot agreement, this area, Guantanamo Bay, can be given back to Cuba if US Navy withdraws, or can be given back to Cuba only by mutual agreement. Without mutual agreement, you cannot withdraw from this treaty till the time United States Navy decides to dump Guantanamo Bay, or through mutual agreement between Cuba and United States, they decide to give this territory back to Cuba. This Guantanamo Bay will continue to be under the control of United States of America. Because according to this plot agreement, this area is sold or given out on lease to United States for an indefinite period. And that is why this question, let's take a poll, easier to understand, easier to write an answer to this. Plot amendment is related to which of the following countries? Israel, Palestine, United States, Cuba, North or South Korea, China and Taiwan. Why Cuban Missile Crisis had happened? That's related to Cold War between USSR and United States. %97 students are right. I don't know what happened to the remaining 3% students. Plot amendment is basically a document which governs the independence of Cuba. But there is a catch mentioned in the plot amendment that United States will accept the sovereignty of Cuba over all the territories except this part which is known as the Guantanamo Bay. And this Guantanamo Bay became notorious after 9/11 attacks. When September 11 attacks took place in the United States of America, then the then President George W. Bush used Guantanamo Bay as the detention center for terrorists or alleged terrorists. And it is argued that worst form of human rights violations were committed, violating the Geneva Convention. War crimes were committed in Guantanamo Bay. That is why in 2009, when Barack Obama became the president of United States, he said within 1 year, I'm going to close down Guantanamo Bay. Didn't happen. Then came Donald Trump. He decided to continue with Guantanamo Bay. And now the president, Joe Biden, has decided to end Guantanamo Bay Detention Center. The last prisoner, the last terror-accused individual from Pakistan was released from Guantanamo Bay. But that doesn't mean that Guantanamo Bay as a territory is given back to Cuba. It still remains under the control of United States of America. Okay. Now let's look at the fourth topic, Khang Kui. It is in Manipur. It is a natural limestone cave. And locally in Manipur, it is known as Khang Kui Mangsor. And this natural limestone cave, it dates back to the Paleolithic age. And it is argued that during World War II, this limestone cave, Khang Kui, was used as a shelter by the local population during the Second World War. As you can see in the image, it is a natural limestone cave. It's in Manipur, locally known as Khang Kui Mangsor, and this dates back to the Stone Age. But why is it in the news? One organization, Zoological Survey of India, published a report saying bats who used to dwell in these limestone caves, these bats are either killed or thrown out so that this Khang Kui cave is used for tourism purposes. And now it becomes important for your prelims examination to understand two things. Number one, what is this Khang Kui cave? It is basically a natural limestone cave in Manipur belonging to the Paleolithic age. And this cave was also used as a shelter by the local people during the Second World War. But why is it in the news? Also because the bats which used to inhabit and dwell this area were killed, according to Zoological Survey of India, so that this cave can be better used for tourism purposes. And now we need to understand what are the other threats to bats as well, particularly in Manipur. Bats, for example, they are eaten in Manipur for basically two reasons. One, it acts as a supplementary or an alternative source of protein, and also for its supposed medicinal properties or uses. There is another threat to the bats. These bats get entangled in the nylon nets. These bats, when they fly, they get entangled in the nylon nets used nearby and they die. So there are three major threats to bats in Manipur. One is it is being eaten by some section of the population for its supposed medical properties or medicinal uses. Second, it acts as an alternative or supplementary source of protein. And also these bats, they get entangled in the nylon nets and ultimately they die. These are the three threats to bats. Now let's look at the poll. Tell me the answer to this question. Five seconds to go. %64% students are right. Ilakia, Minu, Kriti, Saurabh, Komal, Kiran. The Khangkhui cave is a natural limestone cave located in Manipur. Correct. Archaeologists have discovered many important artifacts dating back to the Paleolithic culture from this cave. Correct. Which of these statements are correct? Both, 1 and 2. C is the right answer. Let's look at another topic, electoral bonds. What is the context? There are elections to the states of Gujarat and Himachal Pradesh. And as is customary, just before the election season, the window of electoral bonds is opened by the State Bank of India, by the government. And now more than 500 crore worth of electoral bonds have been bought by the donors. And this money will go to the political parties. There is a constitutional challenge to electoral bonds. There are petitioners who say electoral bonds are unconstitutional because it violates free and fair elections. It is in support of the central government. That is why it should be declared unconstitutional. But for more than 3 years, the case is pending in the Supreme Court. We don't know what will be the outcome of this case. But for the prelims exam, what all do you need to know regarding electoral bonds? Let's discuss. Then we can take up some questions as well. Number one, the year was 2017 when the then finance minister, late Arun Jaitley, inside the parliament, announced a scheme called electoral bonds, under which clean money accounted money shall be donated to political parties. Very briefly, just to give you context, prior to 2017, if I was donating money to a political party and this money was less than 20,000 rupees, the political party need not disclose the donor. So who am I? Political party need not disclose my identity. Only if I donate more than 20,000 rupees, then the identity of the donor is to be disclosed by the political parties. Clear? Then when the political parties had to reveal which are the sources from which you got the money, please tell us. These political parties say majority of our donations, they have come from unknown sources. For example, the BJP was asked, what is the source of your donation? BJP said 60%, 67% of our donations came from unknown sources because we don't know who donated money to us. Because 67% of the donations were less than 20,000 rupees. We don't have to keep a track of the donor. That's why we don't know who these donors are. Congress was asked, what is the source of your donation? Congress said 87% of the donations came from unknown sources. Because 87% of our donations were donations less than 20,000 rupees. We don't have to disclose the identity of the donor because we don't know that. Samajwadi Party was asked, what is your number? Samajwadi Party said 95% of our donations came from unknown sources. Behenji, Mayawati was asked, what is the source of your donation? Mayawati said 100% of donations to Bahujan Samajwadi Party came from unknown sources. That means less than 20,000. We don't know who is the donor to our political party. And majority of this money, bulk of this money was illicit money, unaccounted money, or what is commonly known as the black money. 2017, there were two objectives for Mr. Jaitley. One, political parties should be given only clean money, accounted money, not black money. Second, keep the donor anonymous so as to prevent vendetta. Mr. Jaitley said, if today a corporate house is donating money to me, but my party will not come to power, and opposition will come to power, then this political party will threaten, will penalize, will invoke NIA, CBI, ED, other organizations to put pressure on this corporate house as to why did you donate money to this political party. So we have to maintain and ensure privacy of a donor. That is why the identity of the donor should be anonymous. Even if the identity is anonymous, but we have to ensure that this money which is given to political parties should be clean money, accounted money, which basically means cash, donations should be discouraged. And for that, what Mr. Jaitley said, we are starting a brand new scheme for political party donations known as electoral bonds, under which if you are a donor and if you want to donate money to a political party, what you have to do, approach State Bank of India. Approach State Bank of India and buy these electoral bonds. Electoral bonds can be worth 1,000 rupees, can be worth 10,000 rupees, can be worth 1 lakh rupees, can be worth 10 lakh rupees, can be worth 1 crore rupees. And you can buy as many electoral bonds as possible. There is no limit. But when you buy these electoral bonds, you can buy only through check. You can buy through digital transactions. Which means give check to State Bank of India and buy this electoral bond. Digital transaction, which can be either NEFT or RTGS or IMPS, but use these techniques to buy these electoral bonds, which means we are discouraging cash. You cannot use cash to buy these electoral bonds because cash is widely viewed as an unaccounted money, black money, illicit money. We don't want illicit money to fund political parties. And then what SBI will do, will issue you this electoral bond and you can deposit this bond into the bank account of a political party. And this bank account will be maintained under Reserve Bank of India. And this political party will have 15 days to encash the electoral bond. But these electoral bonds are bearer bonds. That means no name will be mentioned. That means nobody will get to know who bought these electoral bonds and into the bank account of which political party these electoral bonds were deposited. Why? Because not only do we want to discourage the cash, we also want to protect the donor. Otherwise, there will be political vendetta. The privacy of the donor will be violated. Because then the opposition or other political parties will start threatening the donor. Why are you donating to them and not to us? So we have to ensure the privacy of the donor to political parties. And for this reason, we are launching an electoral bonds. But the construction of this scheme is skewed in favor of the government. The only advantageous position in this electoral bond is with the government of the day. Today it's the BJP, tomorrow it can be Aam Aadmi Party or the Congress Party, or a few years later my political party, any political party, but it is advantageous to the government of the day. How? I am the donor. I approached the State Bank of India, bought the electoral bond worth 1 crore rupees. SBI is a public sector bank. It's controlled by the government. So the government will come to know who bought these electoral bonds. Opposition will never come to know. But State Bank of India is a government bank, public sector bank. The government will come to know who bought these electoral bonds. And then the donor will deposit these electoral bonds into the bank account of a political party. And this bank account of a political party is maintained under Reserve Bank of India. Reserve Bank of India is also under the control of the government. Although prima facie it appears, or ideally it should be an autonomous institution, but it is also under the control of the government. So the government will come to know. When government comes to know, if there is a donor who is donating money to Congress, for example, the State Bank of India will tell the government, Mr. X came to us, bought an electoral bond of 1 crore rupees. Okay. Then he deposited it into the bank account of the Congress political party. Reserve Bank of India is telling the government. What government is doing? Government is now threatening this donor, launching Enforcement Directorate, CBI, NIA, NEA, all these agencies against that donor. Why are you donating money to the opposition? Which means the purpose was to ensure that the donor is anonymous, to ensure the privacy of the donor. But this donor is anonymous to everybody, including you and me. To public, we don't know who is donating money to whom. But this donor is not anonymous to the government. That is why majority, more than 90% of the electoral bonds sold, the money went to the BJP, the Bharatiya Janata Party. How do I know? When the matter reached the Supreme Court said, don't tell us who bought these electoral bonds, but political parties, you tell us what is the amount of money that you raised through electoral bonds. Without telling us who donated how much to you, but you tell us what is the amount of money that you raised through electoral bonds. And 90%, more than 90% of the money donated to political parties through electoral bonds went to the ruling party at the center, which is the BJP. Can be any other party tomorrow, but it is skewed in favor of the ruling political party. That is why the petition is before the court, that it violates free and fair elections, because without money you cannot win elections. And if the structure of electoral bond is such that it favors the ruling political party, which basically means elections cannot be free and fair. And it also violates the person's or the voter's right to know. The Supreme Court, many years ago, said under Article 19(1)(a) of the Constitution, the voters have the fundamental right to know. As a voter, what is the right that I have? I should know the educational qualification of a candidate contesting the elections, the amount of assets in his name and in the name of his spouse, the number of criminal cases pending against him. Why? Because I, as a voter, I need to make an informed choice. We're launching a test series. Other institutes also launch a test series. So which test series is better, ours or theirs? For that, you need some information. You need to know the information, whether it is available online and offline as well, whether it is available in Delhi and other centers as well, who will conduct the discussion, whether there will be 36 tests or only 10 tests. Based on this information, you can make a choice as to our test series is better or the others. In a similar fashion, there are 10 candidates contesting the election. I should know who to vote for. And how would I know who to vote for without having the information? I need this information. Who is donating money to you? What is the amount of money in your name and in the name of your spouse? This is my right as a voter, given to me as a fundamental right by the Supreme Court. But as a voter, I don't know who is donating money to which political party through electoral bonds. So electoral bond scheme, prima facie, at the face of it, appears to be unconstitutional because it violates the voter's right to know. But be that as it may, the matter is before the court. Let's see what the court has to say on this matter. Let's take a question. And you tell me what is the answer to this question, and then we will discuss. And this time I'll give you 1 minute to answer this question. Priyanjali saying, what if the party doesn't have a bank account in SBI? That's the third option here. How donors are benefited by donating money to political parties? They get contracts. They get benefited by the policies created by the government later on. Without alleging anything, you can start Reliance Jio later on. You can get a contract in Australia for coal mining, maybe, whatever it is. Peter says something, I don't know. Okay, so 21% students are right. Kiran, Ekta, Swaroop, Shanawaz, Falguni, Sanjay, Mantasha, Navneet. Okay. Statement number 1, all political parties are eligible to raise money through electoral bonds. More often than not, whenever you see a sweeping statement, all, none, every, the statement is wrong. Not all political parties are eligible to raise money through electoral bonds. Only those political parties which poll above 1% votes in the previous election, they are able to raise money through electoral bonds. So all political parties eligible to raise money through electoral bonds, this is an incorrect statement. Statement number 2, electoral bonds can be purchased through foreign currency as well. Incorrect. Foreign currency, no, only Indian rupee through digital transaction. Only through Indian rupee you can buy electoral bonds, not through the foreign currency. If a political party has no account in the designated SBI branches, they cannot encash electoral bond in other account. Correct. Now, one student asked the question, what if they don't have the account in SBI? They will open an account. Because they know money is going to come. They will open an account in the State Bank of India. What is the question asking? Which of the above statements are incorrect? So you just have to keep a track of I. 1 and 2. A is the right answer. You can buy electoral bonds multiple times. There is no limit to the amount of money that you can raise through electoral bonds. Once you've purchased an electoral bond, 15 days are given to political party to encash this amount. Otherwise, it will lapse. And these are bearer accounts, bearer bonds. That means basically the term electoral bond is a misnomer. If you've read economics, you would know on bonds, you also get the interest on bonds, not James Bond. On bonds, you get the interest. But on electoral bonds, you get no interest. So basically the term bond here is a misnomer. It's not the real bond, just an electoral bond. Why not all parties raise money through electoral bond? Otherwise, I will tomorrow set up a political party just for the purpose of receiving money from electoral bonds. So it can be used as a hawala transaction. But only those political parties which have some amount of support amongst the public, which have bagged 1% or more votes, only such real political parties should be able to raise money through electoral bonds. Sir, will morning polity batch be taken by you? Yes, my dear. Now let's look at topic number 6, tuberculosis. The context is that TB cases are on the rise among the workers working in the tea gardens in North Bengal. That's the news which was there in the newspapers recently, and that's why tuberculosis has been picked up as a topic. Tuberculosis, basically, let's look at all the facts related to TB. Tuberculosis is basically a bacterial infection, that means caused by the bacteria, and this bacterial infection is contagious as well. That means it can spread from one person to another person. Till recently, till about 19th century, TB was considered to be the bigger cause, the biggest reason for the causes of death in United States of America. Now it can be cured, it can be prevented, and since it is caused by bacteria, then what is the cure for this? Antibiotics. But these antibiotics are to be taken for a longer period of time. Normally, there are two forms or two varieties of, two types of TB. One is latent, the other is active. Latent tuberculosis, germs are present within the body, but there are no symptoms. When there are no symptoms, that means it is not contagious as well. Why? Because your immune system is able to fight these germs. Latent germs are present within your body, but your immune system is registering a fight. And this fight results in your immune system becoming powerful enough so that it is not contagious. TB is not contagious, and there are no symptoms as well. But the active one, the germs multiply in your body. Multiply in your body, ultimately you fall sick, and this TB becomes contagious as well. These are some facts that you have to keep in mind. But something else, I remember, I can't recall the year that question was asked, but sometimes you are given symptoms. And then the question is asking, if a person is suffering from these symptoms, what is the possible disease that this person is suffering from? So what are the symptoms of TB? Number one, cough, which continues for more than 3 weeks. Sometimes blood through coughing. You seem to be tired all the time. Weight loss. If you want to lose your weight, don't wish for TB. There are multiple ways of losing weight. 5, loss of appetite. 6, fever, chills. My God, what else? Cough more than 3 weeks, sometimes blood coming out from the cough. You feel tired all the time. There is weight loss, and that weight loss is because of the loss of appetite. There is fever, there are chills, there are night fevers. All these are symptoms of a person suffering from TB. And then antibiotics are prescribed, which is a long duration antibiotic treatment for close to 9 months. In fact, the Sustainable Development Goals, now for our examination, one more important detail. One of the health goals under the category of United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, it calls for the eradication of TB by the year. What is the year? Can somebody tell me what is the year? 2030. Anchal is right, Shreya is right, Nithya, Peter, Palak, everybody, very good. And there are some countries where TB is massive, spreading in a sense. It's an epidemic. Sub-Saharan Africa, the South Asian countries such as India, Pakistan, also contributing to the TB cases throughout the world. Now let's look at a question. Let's start a poll. Consider the following statement. First, I have to read it, then look at what is the answer. Then I have to mention what is the answer so that you can answer. Okay, tell me. Sana, I'm also suffering from this disease. May you get well soon. Kiran, Ekta, Swaroop, Shanavas, Falguni, Anshika, Mantasha, Navneet, Indra, Neha, Sunena, Madhvi, Prateek, Sachin, Abhilash, Biswajit. These are leaders today. Tuberculosis is a waterborne disease. Incorrect. It's not. It's caused through bacteria. Tuberculosis mostly affects adults in their most productive life. When the term is mostly, it makes it correct. If it was tuberculosis only affects adults in their most productive years, then it is wrong. It can affect people of any age, but mostly in their most productive age. Sustainable Development Goals Target 3.3 includes ending the TB epidemic by 2030. Correct. Which of the above statements is or are correct? 2 and 3. C is the right answer. It is basically caused, how does it spread? It's not like COVID that it spreads quickly. You have to be in constant contact with those suffering from this disease. And when they sneeze, the bacteria, they enter into your body through nose or others. But you have to be in a continuous contact with TB affected person for you to be affected by this disease. Why in news, Shivani? Because in North Bengal, in tea gardens, there is now a spread of TB, and that is something that was there in the Hindu newspaper. Achilles, sir, INC technique is good. That's why we use it. If it wasn't good, then why would we use it? Seventh, Kala Namak rice. Uh, what is Kala Namak rice? Anyone? It is basically a traditional variety of paddy. It is known for its black husk. That's why Kala Namak. And it is also used for its intense fragrance or aroma. Kala Namak rice, according to the legend, when Lord Buddha attained enlightenment, he gave Kala Namak rice as a gift to Swarasti area, to the people inhabiting that area, which is the Tarai region. So it is considered to be the gift of Lord Buddha when he visited that area after he attained enlightenment. And it is a traditional variety of paddy, which is distinguished by its black husk and its intense fragrance aroma. And this is grown exclusively in the 11 districts of the Terai region, which is there in UP and Nepal. But traditionally, Kala Namak rice was facing an issue because of lodging. What is lodging? The stem becomes so weak that it is unable to support the weight of the grain. Lodging, the stem of the plant becomes so weak that it is unable to support the weight of the grain, and then the grain falls down. That means Kala Namak rice was facing an issue because of lodging, and that is why the yield was significantly reducing year after year. Then what happened, and that is why this topic is in the news? Indian Agriculture Research Institute developed two dwarf varieties of Kala Namak rice, dwarf varieties, so that the stem is not larger, so that it becomes weak and then the grain falls down. We'll have the dwarf varieties of Kala Namak rice. And these two varieties are given name as Pusa Narendra Kala Namak 1838 or 1638 1652. These are the two varieties of dwarf varieties of Kala Namak rice developed by Indian Agricultural Research Institute. But if I ask you, Pusa Narendra, is it in the name of our Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi? No, that's not the case. It is because of its association with Acharya Narendra University of Agriculture and Technology, which is there in Ayodhya, where these two dwarf varieties of Kala Namak rice were tested. That is why these two dwarf varieties are given name as Pusa Narendra Kala Namak 1638 1652. These two varieties will now be developed on a large scale, and these seeds will be distributed to the farmers. That is Kala Namak rice, and that is why it is in the news. Let's look at the question. Tell me the answer to this question. Sneha, GI tag were given to this variety or not? That is mentioned in this question. You tell me. Okay, close to 58% students right. It is so called, consider the following statements regarding Kala Namak rice. It is so called because of its black husk, correct? It is grown exclusively in the Tarai region, correct? Because if it is grown outside, it will lose its aroma and other essential features. The soil in the Tarai region is required for Kala Namak rice to grow. It is protected under the geographical indication, correct? All these statements are correct. D, all of the above is the right answer. Now let's look at topic number 8, Yuapa. Something happened in Assam. Mia Museum was inaugurated by a few Muslim leaders in Assam, and ultimately the purpose was to showcase the tradition of the Mia Muslims. Mia Muslim is considered to be a derogatory term for those Muslims who migrated from Bangladesh to Assam, and they are not considered as the original inhabitants of Assam. These are considered to be illegal migrants, but they wanted to showcase their history, their culture, and that is why they set up museum. The government said the place where you set up this museum was created under the government scheme. You have violated the norms. This museum was closed. Those who inaugurated this museum, set up this museum, they were booked under UAPA. What is UAPA? Let's look at this in great detail for your prelims examination. The year was 1967 when UAPA was enacted based on the resolution passed by National Integration Council. So National Integration Council basically met in 1967, discussed ways in which we can keep our country integrated, united. What are the threats to our national integration? And it was found that there are some organizations which indulge in unlawful activities. Those organizations should be banned. There should be a specific law to target these organizations. And that is how, on the basis of the resolution passed by NIC, National Investigation Council, and UAPA was enacted in 1967. And this law has been amended 7 times. Sometimes this is also important for your prelims exam, because once there was a question asked in your prelims examination, the Office of Profit Act has been amended 6 times, whether this statement is correct or not. That was also one of the statements in your prelims examination. So UAPA was amended 7 times, but the significant amendments were made in 2008, 2013, and the last one was in 2019. What is the combined effect of these amendments? You need to understand that UAPA deals with unlawful acts as well as terrorist acts. Although these terms are used interchangeably, but they convey different meanings. Unlawful act is basically if you're saying something which goes against the unity, integrity, and the sovereignty of the nation. If you say something, if you write something, if you make a movie, if you display a cartoon which goes against the sovereignty, integrity of the nation, you're basically committing an unlawful act, because it is not lawful to say something against the unity, integrity, and the sovereignty of the nation. You can say this is similar to Section 124 capital A, which deals with sedition. But then Terror Act is different. You are not saying something against unity, integrity, and sovereignty of the nation. You are doing something against the unity, integrity, and sovereignty of the nation through bomb, through landmines, through weapons, and which leads to killing of people, which leads to injuring the people, which leads to destruction of property of the people or the state, that is what we call a terrorist act. So UAPA deals with both unlawful acts as well as terror acts. Unlawful act is basically words spoken against unity, integrity, sovereignty of the nation, or actions through speeches, through cartoons, through movies, through songs, through writings, which goes against the unity, integrity, and the sovereignty of the nation. And the terrorist act is when you do something violently through firearms, through landmines, through weapons, through bombs, through IEDs, improvised explosive devices, which causes destruction of property, which causes death to the individuals, which causes injury to the individuals. That's a terrorist act. And the original intention of UAPA was to ban an organization which is conducting or indulging in unlawful activities. Ban these organizations which are performing these unlawful acts. That's the mandate of UAPA. Also, penalize membership of these organizations. Not only should you ban the organization which is responsible for these unlawful acts, you should also penalize those who are the members of these organizations. Not just that, you should also penalize those who fund these organizations. That was the mandate of UAPA. And later on, when the mandate was extended, not just to unlawful acts, but also to terror acts, so it was decided we should ban the organizations which are responsible for terror acts. We should penalize the membership of these terror organizations, and we should also punish those who are funding these terrorist organizations. And then the mandate further extended. We should penalize those individuals and organizations which promote terrorism, which support terrorism, which is otherwise indulging in terrorism. So we should ban those organizations which are promoting terrorism, which are supporting terrorism, which are otherwise involved in terrorism. But in 2019, because prior to 2019, you could only declare an organization as unlawful. You could declare an organization as terrorist organization. Now in 2019, when this law was amended, now even an individual can be declared as a terrorist. Previously, only organizations could be declared terror organizations. Now even individuals can be declared as terrorists if, in the opinion of the central government, you are promoting terrorism, you are engaging in terrorism, you are supporting terrorism, or you are otherwise involved in terrorism. That's what Mr. Modi said recently, and Mr. Amit Shah also said recently, that we should not only focus on those who promote terrorism through guns. We should also look at those who promote terrorism through words. And that is the mandate of, if you are otherwise involved in terrorism. You are not promoting terrorism through guns. You are not supporting terrorism through funding, but you are otherwise involved in terrorism. How? Through words. And that is the term that BJP and the ruling party members use today, urban Naxal. Urban Naxals, in the sense, those who are the university professors who indoctrinate the minds of the students that we should raise arms, this government is not your own government, you're basically promoting disaffection against the government, against the state, against the nation. So if you're promoting that, indoctrinating the minds of the students or the common public, you are basically declared as a terrorist. And here one important thing, burden of proof is on the individual. If tomorrow central government says, Mr. Sarmad, you are declared as a terrorist by us under UAPA, then I have to prove before the court of law that I'm not the terrorist. Normally, the burden of proof is on the prosecution. The government, the state has to prove that I'm a terrorist, give the evidence that I'm a terrorist. But under UAPA, the burden of proof shifts. Now it's the burden on me to prove that I'm not a terrorist, I'm innocent. There were a lot of individuals who criticized when this law was amended in 2019, saying organizations, yes, they can be declared unlawful terrorists, but how can you declare an individual as a terrorist, even without the order of the court? So if I've committed an act of crime, I will be arrested, FIR will be filed, investigation will be carried out, then the court will decide after a few years, yes, you are guilty, you have committed this crime, you are a terrorist. So basically, it should be a judicial order to declare I'm a terrorist. But here, it's not a judicial order. The central government believes that I am a terrorist. I am a terrorist, which goes against the liberty under Article 21. That's what some people said. But there are some positive points as well. Positive points in the sense, Masood Azhar, the terrorist who was released in exchange of hostages when Indian Airlines plane IC-814 was hijacked, and then the plane was taken to Kandahar, which was then ruled by Taliban. And in exchange of hostages, 3 dreaded terrorists were released, and one was Masood Azhar, who later on founded Jaish-e-Mohammed, a terror organization which then carried out terror attack on Indian Parliament, on the temple of India's democracy in 2001. Masood Azhar, we were fighting in United Nations Security Council that please declare him as a terrorist. And we were fighting a lot, and it was after much persuasion that China agreed and Masood Azhar was declared as a terrorist. So if we are fighting an international forum that individual, not organization, individual be declared as terrorist, why can't our domestic law also talk about declaring an individual as a terrorist? That's number one. Number two, previously what would happen, you ban an organization, but you don't call the members of that organization terrorists. Which basically means when you ban that organization, those who are the members of this organization, they start another organization. For example, when Lashkar-e-Toiba was banned, it was banned even in Pakistan under the pressure of United Nations, United States, and other countries. The head of Lashkar-e-Toiba, Hafiz Saeed, he started another organization, Jamaat-ud-Dawa. So you have to ban the individuals also, declare them terrorists so that they are not in a position to create another terror organization. That is the reason why this law is good. And then there are other reasons as well, those who say this law is bad. But be that as it may, UAPA is in the news because of the arrest of some individuals under UAPA in Assam. The history of UAPA, how it was created, what is the target, what is the 2019 amendment, that becomes important for your prelims examination. Clear? Done? One more important thing, this is where we will link UAPA with NIA. I told you there is a scheduled offenses. If you are committing these offenses, then NIA will conduct the investigation. And one such offense is UAPA. If you are accused under UAPA, NIA will conduct the investigation. But then what is the punishment? Properties of these individuals who are arrested under UAPA can be seized. But before 2019, if the property of an individual accused under UAPA was to be seized, you had to take the permission of the Director General of Police of that state. Now, 2019 amendment says, if the investigation is conducted by NIA, you don't have to take the permission of the Director General of Police of that state. You have to take the permission of the Director General of NIA. So what is the context? Can you repeat? Long story short, if this is a scheduled offense, UAPA, and if NIA is conducting an investigation because you're accused under UAPA, one punishment is your property will be seized. Prior to 2019, if NIA had to seize the property of this accused, NIA had to take the permission of the Director General of Police. Now NIA does not have to take the permission of the Director General of Police. NIA has to take the permission of the Director General of NIA. So the inspector who is conducting the investigation has to take the permission of the Director General of NIA to seize the property of an accused under Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. Done? Last topic of the day. What is the difference between parole and furlough? This is in the news. Why? Because Gurmeet Ram Rahim Insan Singh has been released on parole again. Critics say because there are elections in Haryana, a by-poll in Haryana, local polls in Haryana. That is why just before when there is an election in Haryana, Gurmeet Ram Rahim Insan Singh is released on parole. He is accused of committing rape on his devotees and he is serving life imprisonment on that. He is also accused, not accused, he is convicted of rape for which he is serving a life sentence. He is also convicted for murder for which he is serving life sentence. So he is serving two back-to-back life sentences because of rape and murder. But whenever there are elections in Haryana, he is released on parole, which speaks to a larger question of what is parole and how is it different from furlough. And in fact, 2 years ago in prelims examination, this question was asked in your exam. And sometimes UPSC does repeat the questions as well. So you have to be clear as to what is the difference between parole and furlough. For that, few facts, few contexts. Prison is a state subject under the distribution of powers between the center and the state into union list, state list, concurrent list. Prison is a state subject. So there is a clarity that all the prison rules are different from state to state because prison is a state subject. The states are free to pass their own rules regarding prisons, which includes rules related to parole, furlough. But then there is a model prisons manual released by the central government in 2006, under which the central government is asking the states, please consider, please ensure that whenever you are tweaking your prison rules, whenever you are modifying prison rules, please ensure that you stick to this model manual that we have requested you. Under which parole and furlough, some individuals are not eligible. Who are these convicts? Who are these inmates, prisoners who are not eligible for parole or furlough? Number one, those who are convicted for heinous crimes. Two, those whose presence may be against the peace in the society. Those who may not return back to the prisons. So parole and furlough is basically you are releasing convicts for some time, for some reasons, and then they have to go back to the jail. Why sometime? Why for some reason? I'll tell you slightly later. But parole and furlough basically is the release of the convicts for some time, for some reason, but then they have to come back. According to the manual prisons rules released by the central government in 2006, It's asking the states that some individuals should not be considered eligible for parole and furlough. Who are these individuals? Those who are convicted for heinous crimes such as rape and murder, such as dacoity, such as terrorism. Second, those individuals whose presence may be a threat to the society. Third, those who may not return back to the prisons after their parole or furlough is over. Such individuals should not be considered. But then what is the difference between parole and furlough? Furlough is considered to be the right of a convict. If I am a convict, it is my right to be released on parole for, let's say, 15 days in a year. For example, furlough is given to, listen to me carefully, these are very important distinctions. Furlough is normally given in minor offenses. When you are accused of committing a minor offense. Let's say I am accused of committing a crime. Now I'm convicted for that crime, for committing that crime, and I'm sentenced for, let's say, 7 years in jail. It is my right to be released on furlough for, let's say, 15 days in a year, and when I'm released outside for 15 days, it will be considered as part of my prison sentence. Prison sentence in the sense, if I'm released for 15 days, that doesn't mean I have to now serve 7 years and 15 days. These 15 days will be treated as part of my sentence, but I'm released on furlough. And when I approach the authorities, who can be a district collector, or it can be a magistrate, or it can be a director general of the prisons, when I approach them that please release me on furlough, they don't have to ask for a reason. This furlough is given to break prison monotony, so that there is still a connect that a prisoner has with outside world. Because after 7 years, I will be released from the jail. There should be regular contact that I should establish with the outside world as well. Because then, if I'm not released on furlough for 15 days in a year, I will lose my entire connect with the outside world. For example, there is one beautiful movie, one of my favorite movies, and if you have time, please watch that movie, Shawshank Redemption. Morgan Freeman is one terrific actor in this. There was one, it's about prison time. There was one protagonist in this movie, Brooks. Yeah, Saif is right. He says Brooks was here. Brooks, he served a lot of time in jail, but then when he was released finally from the jail, he could not gel with the outside world. He used to make a lot of mistakes outside, and ultimately he decided to take his life. And he hanged himself and then wrote on the wall, Brooks was here. So you need to give opportunity to these inmates to go out, establish contact with the outside world for 15 days in a year. Furlough is your right, and normally given in minor offenses. But parole is not a right of a prisoner. Parole is given for specific reasons. For example, there is a wedding in a family, death of a relative, which you have to attend. For a certain period, you are released on parole. And this parole is not considered part of sentence. Which means if you are released on parole for 1 month and you are serving 10 years in jail, you have to then serve 10 years and 1 month. Unlike furlough, it will not be treated as part of your prison sentence or prison term. So furlough is a right, parole is not a right. Furlough is given as a matter of right for 15 days in a year, just so that you can still be in contact with the outside world. But parole is given for a specific reason. When there is a death in the family, when there is a marriage in the family which you need to attend, you're released on parole, provided you are of good behavior. If your behavior inside the jail is good. But then this is also misused by the governments, where they release even those who are convicted of heinous crimes, such as rape and murder, just for political considerations, such as the head of the Dera Sacha Sauda in Haryana, in Sirsa region, Gurmeet Ram Rahim Insan Singh, released on parole multiple times whenever there are elections, so that you can give a sense to the people that we are on the side of this political party, and I can ask my supporters to vote for this political party. In fact, Sanjay Dutt, when he was booked under Arms Act, he was also released on furlough for numerous times. And then again, there was a controversy that you are treating Sanjay Dutt with kid gloves. And primarily because of his influence and his stature, because of his parents, because of his Bollywood aura, you are releasing these individuals. But be that as it may, whether right, wrong, good or bad, that's about it. These are the few 9 topics that we had to discuss in today's webinar. Please let us know whether you're able to understand these lectures. And don't forget to take the prelims test series, the first one, on 6th of November, Sunday, 9:30 to 11:30. And if you're in Delhi, let's meet. I'll be there. Let's meet and discuss. Yes, understood. Fabulous session. Thank you. Good night. Is murder not a heinous crime? Yes, it is. Undoubtedly. Sir, will you be in Delhi on Sunday? Yes. Is there any extra fee for offline center? No, you are part of this course. This is part of your course, prelims test series. You don't have to pay anything for this. Thank you so much. Stay well, stay safe. Bye-bye. Take care. Good night.